Hey guys, welcome to the analysis for September 11th. Today we're going to talk about some great trade setups, including this euro-dollar continuation setup that you see here. If you're not familiar with the analysis and you don't get it every day, make sure that you fill out the form using the link below so that you do get this every day. If you remember, the daily analysis has not always been free. This is something that we're doing at the current time just as a bonus to all of our subscribers, is offering this analysis for free. And we're not sure how long it'll last, but as long as you fill out the form and get it for free now, you'll be grandfathered in and get it for free forever. So make sure that you do fill out that form if you want the analysis for free. Okay, we're going to jump into this analysis in just a minute. Before we do that, let's take a look at our news that's coming up tomorrow. So tomorrow you can see that we don't have a lot of New York session news. What we do have is some major pound and euro news. The pound news happens at 4:30, which is in the middle of the London session, and the euro news is a German constitutional court ruling, so that's obviously not a timed announcement. That's a tentative announcement, so keep an eye on that one as well. Then later on, kind of right before the Asian session, we hit all of our New Zealand news, which you see down here. That includes the official cash rate, which tends to be a pretty big announcement in itself, plus press conference and rate statement. So should be a big day for New Zealand as well. Definitely keep an eye on that. All right, in the middle here where we normally see our U.S. dollar and Canadian news, we don't see as much, so that shouldn't be affected, which can be a benefit to you if you're trading technically. A lot of times without news, that means that things will tend to follow suit more regularly because there's nothing that's going to throw them off. But of course, in trading, you always have to be aware and know that anything can happen. But still, that should give you maybe a little more confidence in your setups around 8 or 8:30, knowing that there's not going to be news coming out and changing anything. So just keep all those in mind and make sure that you're aware of that New Zealand news if you're holding any trades into the afternoon, because that can obviously throw the market for a spin, certainly. All right, we're going to quickly run over our terms here. Okay guys, so these are our terms, and it's just a legal formality that we need to tell you that we're not licensed or qualified to provide investment advice. This is not us telling you what to do with your money. It's just our personal views and something that might help you take advantage of the market based on what we're thinking. That's all it is. Just important to understand that because of the United States government rules involving Forex and investment in general. All right, so with that said, let's actually jump into our analysis. Alright guys, so the first thing I have up here is the euro dollar, and if you've been watching the analysis, you know that this triangle pattern here is one thing that we've been tracking, and we noted the break of this level on Friday during all that news. And so what's great about this is that we had a little one bar pullback, and now we're seeing a strong continuation bar. So we have a tiny bit of a base here that's been built, and it's looking to show continuation to the upside, which is obviously a good sign for those of you that are long or looking to take along. In my opinion, I think this level up here, which obviously is a very strong level historically speaking because of all the testing that happened here, that's going to be a great magnet for price and try to pull price up. So as far as I'm concerned, a long towards that level is going to be a great idea. I wouldn't maybe target all the way up, maybe a little bit below this level in case it pulls up close and then gets bounced backward very strong. That's always a possibility when you're dealing with a major level like this one. So obviously be careful if you're trading that, but still I think that this really will act, this area up here, as a magnet for price and try to pull that price up there. Now, one thing that I also want to point out to be careful about is this trend line here. And remember that this is the line that our triangle developed off of. But just because this level is broken, that does not invalidate this trend line that we have going up here. Okay, so this trend line, this trend line is still valid, and it's still very likely that you could get bounces off this trend line pulling up. So with that said, price being kind of steeper, I guess I'll say steeper than it has been with the breakout here, we could expect a pullback into this trend line before getting up to here. So that's one thing to keep in mind as well, and something that I would probably keep my eye on. If price starts to pull back a little bit towards this trend line, you might want to be very careful about your longs, because that's probably meaning that it's going to make a test on this level at least before it gets up into here. That's not to say that it won't eventually get back up to this level, but you never know when price is going to take a pullback before getting up there. So that's just one thing to always keep in mind. Keep your levels in mind. Nothing wrong with taking a long and getting in with momentum, but while you're trading that, you have to be aware of the levels that it might be trying to pull back to before it gets there. Okay, so that's the euro dollar. Great continuation bar today. Obviously, we'll see what happens tomorrow, and there's no major dollar news, so we'll see what happens with the euro and how that affects that move up. Okay, next we're going to take a look at the pound dollar. Now, obviously, if you've been watching the pound, you know that it's rallying up quite a bit. Although pound was actually slightly weaker than euro today, and you'll see that when I show you the euro pound chart in just a little bit. But one thing that happened with the pound that we've been noting is that we had to break out the pullback into this level and then the continuation, and we talked about longs all the way down here. Hopefully some of you got those longs and are still holding on to that, because that pound dollar long from down here was just a great trade all the way. And I think that a lot of people watching the analysis did jump on that and take advantage of that trade, and it certainly worked out really well, and is probably still working out. One thing to be careful about with the pound, though, is that it seems pound is weakening against other pairs across the board. Dollar remained very weak today, so pound obviously rose a lot against it. But the euro pound, pound odd, pound New Zealand, all of those pairs, we're seeing some weakening of the pound against. So you might want to be careful with pound, though if you're holding a trade that's up large pips, there's no reason really not to hold it all the way until it gives you a reason to get out. So great continuation on the pound, looking very strong. Obviously a lot of momentum behind this dollar weakness, and we're seeing the rally from the pound. So this was a great example of waiting for that retest and taking advantage of on the next spike, and that's exactly what happened. And like I said, just if you're holding on to that, I would continue to hold it as long as it doesn't give you a reason to get out. But just be wary of that pound strength and make sure that it's not backing off on you, because you don't want to give up profit, obviously. All right, let's look at that euro pound that I mentioned. Now, as I said today, the euro was stronger than the pound and made some ground against the pound, as you can see, based on the bullish bar today. And the pound dollar has definitely, the euro pound has definitely broken out of this top level that we pointed out since the downtrend broke this key level. It had stayed under here for quite some time, but obviously, along with a lot of other euro pairs breaking out, the euro pound did break to the upside on Friday. And very similar to the euro dollar, what we see here is a very strong bar breaking out, a 1 bar pullback here, and then a continuation bar followed. So this is very similar to the euro dollar situation, although of course it's facing a stronger pair in the pound than the dollar. One thing to note is that this uptrend has been pretty consistent. We've had several tests and showing some continuation. It's what I consider an ascending triangle, and a lot of times ascending triangle breaks do end up following through for quite some time. So the euro pound has a lot of resistance in its way. All of these areas that we see here are going to be difficult for it to break through. However, the technical uptrend is legitimate with the euro pound because it's continuing to make higher highs. It made its first high here where it broke up to the upside, made a high here, and has now made a high here. So it is progressing to the upside. And as far as from a technical standpoint, I wouldn't say there's any reason not to trade toward the upside, because the euro pound is making very technically sound moves in that direction. So one thing to keep an eye out for is if it comes back to test this level, because we can see that it didn't come all the way down. So that's a concern. This is a major level, in my opinion, that it might consider coming back to and testing one more time before it does head up, if it is in fact going to head up, and it didn't come all the way back down to test that. So that's one thing that I'd be maybe a little bit wary of with the pound, the euro pound that is. But still, I think this continuation bar seems like a pretty legitimate setup, and I would be thinking long as far as the euro pound is considered. Longer term, I think the euro is gaining some legitimate strength. Since Draghi made his statement several weeks back about the ECB getting involved and doing whatever it takes, the euro has actually shown some consistency. So who knows if that's going to be one of these long-term developing trends that we look back on and say, wow, I really wish I would have got on at the beginning of that. perhaps we are at the beginning of that and have an opportunity to be on board. So keep that in mind and make sure that you're just being very open to the trade setups that are occurring, because euro certainly is showing some consistent strength over the past month and a half or so. So that's what I'm looking at the euro pound, and I would be expecting some good follow through based on this euro strength. I showed you that the pound, or I told you that the pound was weakening against some other pairs. So let's look at a few of those. First, we'll check out pound odd. Okay, so recently the pound odd was basically heading up like a rocket ship because of all the odd weakness, and the pound was one of the strongest pairs across the board. So you see that this uptrend was actually pretty incredible for several weeks that lasted. During the news, we got this double topping action right at previous support, so this acted as major resistance and pushed price down. And since then, you can see that there's actually some pretty decent continuation. Very much like the other pairs, we see a strong move, a one bar pullback, and then a continuation bar today. So overall, today has certainly been kind of a continuation of the moves on Friday, and obviously that's very clear based on what we see today on the pound odd, as well as the euro pound, pound dollar, and euro dollar, all the pairs that we've looked at so far. So the pound odd is one that I think has great potential to move down because it's so high. We're at a pretty critical level right now because not only is it just a recent bottom, but it's also a previous level. So if it can break through here, that will give me a little more confidence that this is headed down. But one thing to keep in mind with pound odd is that if odd does gain strength, the pound could very potentially come all the way back down to this previous bottom, which is a lot of pips. You can see that this rally was very huge, and this could match that on the way down with the same kind of intensity and steepness. So you want to be on the lookout for that. You certainly wouldn't want to miss a drop like that. So the pound odd is something that I'm looking at. This would be one of those setups where if you get a break, a retest, and a go, that this little shelf, or this little leg, I should say, here, would be a great place to jump on and grab a lot of pips on the pound odd if that downward momentum is continued. So you'll certainly want to keep an eye on that one and make sure you're ready if the pound odd is going to drop. The pound New Zealand is the other one, so let's take a look at that. Okay, and the pound New Zealand is a trade that I actually like more than the pound odd for several reasons. I'll name a few. Number one, it started its turn at a perfect Fibonacci level, which you always like to see. This is the 50 fib level, so that's something that's always adding encouragement to your sentiment. The next is that the second leg, or the last leg I should say, broke the previous level. So whereas the pound odd is sitting at the same area, today's bar actually broke the low already that was set on Friday. And not only that, it's not sitting at resistance anymore, so it's already through this area and pretty much all this stuff too. Not to mention the fact that pound New Zealand just moves way more pips. So a drop to here is about 630 pips, which is a lot more than the pound odd. So for all those reasons, I really like the pound New Zealand short even better than the pound odd short opportunity. But one thing to keep in mind is that there's tons of New Zealand news tomorrow, so that could affect this trade quite a bit. And it's something to look out for if you're going to take a pound New Zealand short. Of course, if there's New Zealand positive news, that thing should drop like a rock, and this short will make you rich in a hurry. So, that kind of goes both ways, of course, but that's a trade that I think has a lot of potential as far as downward momentum behind it. So certainly keep an eye on that. Okay, I'm going to cover a few more pairs here. One pair that I want to look at is the US yen, even though we don't typically find a lot of setups in there. We'll check that out quickly. So the US yen is a pair that I talked about. We don't find a lot of setups in normally because it's channeling like this. However, with all of this US weakness, we actually finally see a breakout that pushed through the bottom of that little zone that we were working on. Now, keep in mind that last time we had a breakout, it reverted right back into the trend, as we can see here. So you have to keep an eye out for that. However, we have a double level here because we have the bottom of this channel that's been held for quite some time, and this previous area here. So that's kind of where we're sitting at right now. Perhaps a few pips past that. If it does show some continuation beyond this point, I think that we could look for some pretty long-term U.S. yen shorts because the U.S. yen's a pretty trendy pair. Once it gets moving, it can move in one direction for a solid amount of time. It doesn't always channel like we've seen recently. So looking for U.S. yen long-term opportunities is always a factor. If I scroll back here, actually, you can see some of these longer-term moves, like this one up, and then of course this one down. Keep in mind that this low before this rally has still not been touched, so that's a potential target for U.S. yen shorts, this previous low here at 76.06. So that's something that I might be interested in targeting if this shows some continuation to the downside, and I'll be keeping an eye on that for certain, and we'll be letting you know if I kind of decide to take that and really turn my bias towards the U.S. yen short. Right now, I'm not at that point yet. I still want to see more definite direction, more momentum, more follow through, more confidence in yen strength. But still, I think that's definitely a good opportunity to look toward in the future, and I'll let you know what I'm thinking as it progresses. Let's also check out the pound yen. Now, the pound yen is a bit surprising for me because I was expecting some good opportunity for follow through, especially because of this rounding motion and the pound dollar showing so much strength and continuation. I was expecting that to kind of follow suit on the pound yen. However, it's the yen strength that actually really is showing on the pound yen, not the pound strength. And you can see that obviously by this push down that it's made over the past 3 days. Now, it is off a previous level of resistance, which we talked about in previous analysis, but I'm kind of surprised that this rounding out didn't continue and meet some higher highs. I don't think I'm really set on the idea that pound yen isn't going to do that. This could be just a pullback or retest of the top of this little shelf here, and maybe looking for some continuation after that. I don't know, but right now it seems a little unsure, which it's kind of upsetting because I was waiting for pound yen to make a break and look to show a little more trending, definite direction, and I just don't see that now, unfortunately. So that's another one that I'll just be waiting on and hopefully getting a better idea of what it's doing in the near future. Unfortunately, this is a trade, thinking this long was continuing, that did not work out well. So, I'm still waiting. Maybe I'll get back into that and get a better setup. But for now, it's looking a little indecisive again, and I'm just going to back off the pound yen altogether. Alright guys, let's check out one more pair before we finish up this analysis, and that's going to be the odd dollar. And as you know, the odd dollar is a pair that we always look at because it has a lot of trending potential, and I'll show you the trending potential that I'm looking at right now. Okay, so this is a pretty zoomed up view of the odd dollar daily chart. And as you know, we were in this upward channel for quite some time, and I really wasn't expecting a downward break. Actually, I was expecting more likely a steeper break to the upside that would just steepen the uptrend that we were already in. But as you know, we did get this burst of odd weakness that lasted quite some time, and really a full collapse of the odd dollar for several weeks in a row. Obviously, we're rebounding now. We had a double bottom here, and we're showing some movement up. And so what I'm expecting now is maybe a kind of reverse of what we saw in the odd dollar before. So instead of breaking to the downside through with all this momentum towards the downside, what I'm thinking could be a possibility is for odd to break right back up in this channel and then actually continue even higher at a steeper rate. Because oftentimes when the Australian especially is moving strong, it's very steep movements, and we see that when we look through the odd dollar daily history, is that a lot of moves are very steep. This is actually a very shallow move for odd. So I'm thinking that with all the momentum we're seeing right now in odd, especially coupled with this US dollar weakness, that this could actually be a burst right through both these levels. So if I extend this line a little bit here, let me pull this out. What I'm thinking could be a possibility is a breakthrough here, maybe a retest, and actually a shootout of the top of this level with some really steep, odd dollar movement. So for me, what I'm hoping for is a good month of September for odd news and a bad month of September for dollar news to really accelerate this trend in the upward direction. I think that we could possibly see a massive odd dollar bullish month in the month of September, obviously depending on that news and other stuff. but it's something that I'm looking at as far as good solid momentum trends. I think the odd dollar has a lot of potential to be that, and it's one that I'll definitely be watching, and something I'll keep an eye on if I were you as well. So that's kind of my theory of odd dollar. Obviously, I'm not recommending that you throw money into a long and expect that to happen, but it's just something I think could be a possibility with the odd strength if that gets back on track, and assuming that the U.S. dollar remains pretty weak and continues to get some bad news like it's done lately. All right. Well, that's the last pair I'm going to cover in the daily analysis. Be sure to leave a comment or a question or anything below. I'd really encourage you to leave a comment, if you're taking any of these trade setups that I talked about. It's really great to get feedback and kind of get to know where people are at. I know that every once in a while I get a comment that someone took a trade and is up a decent amount of pips, and that's always good to hear. I'd really like to get that information, from you guys, just to know and just to get that interaction. So be sure to leave a comment if you're looking at some of these trades, or maybe if you're going the opposite direction that I'm thinking. That's always great too, because it just gives me more things to look at and think about. And I think that interaction with this stuff is really important. Alright guys, well thanks so much for watching. Have a great day, and do make sure you fill out that form below with that link if you're not tuned into the daily analysis every day, so that you can be sure to be on that list and get it for free. Alright guys, thanks, and I'll talk to you soon.